The Business Channel for business class programming.
With me now is Steve Pateman, who's the head of UK Commercial and Corporate Banking at Santander. Thanks for joining us.
Hi.
Now, can you give me an overview of what the company does?
Okay. Well, Santander is effectively the combination of Alliance and Leicester, Bradford and Bingley and Abbey, which was the first Santander acquisition in the UK. And from next year, the RBS branches that we've acquired as well. So bringing all those together, we'll have 1,700 branches in the UK. We'll have around about 44, 45 business centres, around about 600 relationship managers. So this is all from, as far as the corporate and commercial banking business is concerned, from a zero start just 3 years ago. So we look after companies that turn over more than £1 million, effectively all the way up to about £2 billion, which are looked after by our international colleagues.
And how do the products that you supply help companies that are trying to grow?
Well, I think if any business is seeking to grow, whether they're looking for markets in the UK or they're looking for markets outside the UK, they need to be sure that they're going to have access to funding. There's a big working capital cycle and there's a big asset investment cycle that's required. So it's no good having a banking relationship where actually the finance is there today but gone in 3 months' time. So we focus very much on making sure that we really understand the companies we work with by spending a lot of time with them, getting to understand their business, getting to understand what could go right, what could go well, what could not go well, and how they'll deal with it. So we really become much more of a partner than a provider of a product. In fact, we're very keen not to be seen as a provider of products. We're very keen to be seen as a partner and to work with them as their other partners do. So if we have an understanding of their business, then we can provide financial solutions to them in terms of funding packages that will give them the confidence to grow and develop their business, to take on more staff, to invest in more equipment, to find new markets.
Now, the issue of access to funding is a key factor for manufacturers.
Yeah.
And how do you approach the decision-making for lending?
I think that when you're going to make an investment in a business, and people don't tend to regard loans as an investment, they regard them as a product. Actually, we see them as an investment. If we're going to invest some capital in a business, we really need to understand that business inside out. So our relationship managers spend time getting to know the client, getting to know their business, getting to understand their working capital cycle, their asset finance plans, not just looking at the numbers from last year, but looking at the plans for the future. We spend a lot of time trying to understand management, their capability, their strengths, their weaknesses, but also the competitive environment in which the business must operate. So we spend a lot of time maybe not on the numbers, but on the softer factors of a business, because that's probably what produces that's exactly what produces the numbers.
Now, investment and going into new markets is crucial for manufacturers. Now, how do you use your expertise to help your clients get into new markets?
Well, in the markets where Santander has a local branch presence and a history, so South America, the United States, Poland, parts of Europe, then we would work very closely with Santander's businesses in each of those markets. So we've been involved in a number of trade missions to Latin America, where we've introduced our companies to potential customers and potential markets in each of those jurisdictions. So that's how we do it. We have a trade finance business that allows us to provide the trade finance support as they start to get to know these markets. I mean, I think it's a big challenge for a business that's traditionally dealt with its customers within the UK and knows exactly where they are and understands the legal environment, to suddenly go and deal with a business in Brazil or Uruguay where they don't understand the environment at all. And to be able to deal with someone who's got a bank account at Santander and banks with Santander does give them a lot of comfort.
So for manufacturing businesses that are new to Santander, what kind of reassurance can you give them about Santander's credentials?
We spend a lot of time getting to know our customers before we develop a relationship with them. So we don't just sort of turn up and offer a loan and then that might be there today and gone tomorrow. We spend a lot of time building that relationship and building that understanding. We think that's probably the most important part of what we do. In fact, the relationship managers we've recruited are recruited specifically to build those relationships. So our view is if we take the appropriate time on the way in, when we make the investment, when we make the loan, then we can be there for the long term. So we do tend to look at businesses not just in terms of what their trading is today and what their immediate prospects look like, but what their longer term prospects are as well. And that's the basis upon which the relationship is built.
There is this slight perception, isn't there, that banks aren't open for business. They're not sort of lending at the moment. But is that true of Santander?
It's not true of Santander because we've have a relatively small market share, and therefore actually the only way we're going to be successful is if we grow, and we can't rely on the growth in the UK economy, inflation, GDP, to allow us to grow at the level we want to grow. So we have to take market share from others, and we've been very successful. So in 2009 we grew our lending by 16%, that number was 26% in 2010, and actually is ahead of that so far in 2011. Many of the customers who came to see us were customers who couldn't get what they wanted from their existing bank. And that's kind of obvious when you sort of set up a bank in the UK. However much money you spend on marketing, the guys who are going to come and see you to start with are the people who perhaps can't get what they want from their existing provider. So in helping a lot of those customers, which we've been able to do, you would assume that we have a higher risk profile than our competitors, and we don't. That our risk profile, in terms of our cost of risk as we measure it, for the lending that we've done over the last 3 years, is running at about 20% of the cost of risk as measured by the industry in the period up to 2008. So whilst we've taken on customers who can't get what they want from other banks, we're not doing it at the expense of risk, which I think is probably, for me, the most telling observation about how the industry has perhaps supported the broader UK economy over the course of the last 3 years.
Now, how do you see the bank growing in relation to the UK economy as a whole?
Well, we made the acquisition of Abbey 2004. We've since added Alliance Leicester and Bradford and beginning next year RBS. So we've gone from being a relatively, I guess, building society centric organisation in terms of our product capability and range into a full service bank, both in retail and in corporate and commercial banking. And that's very much the kind of road upon which we're on. We would like to get to a market share of around about 15% in the UK. We're not obsessed with market share, it's not the be all and end all of life, but that's kind of where we see ourselves. We would see ourselves naturally having a 15% market share in the UK, which is pretty consistent with the market shares we have in all our other stronger businesses like Spain, Portugal, Brazil, and ultimately it's the same goal for the United States.
Now, if you were to lobby for changes in UK government policy or an EU policy that would help you or help your clients, what would you be asking for?
I mean, someone asked me much the same question not that long ago, what can the government do to help you? And I said absolutely nothing. But it wasn't meant to be anything other than an observation that we shouldn't rely on the government to help us. We should be able to make our own decisions. We should be able to build our own business. I think a lot of businesses would like to see a lot of the red tape that they perceive makes their life difficult removed. And I think perhaps, taking a more macro perspective, we need to make the UK an attractive place for foreign companies to want to invest and for companies here to want to invest. The tax environment has got to be favourable, but at the same time, so has the environment for encouraging businesses to invest for the longer term. And at the moment, we're probably not as competitive in those spaces as we should be, and the budget started to make some changes to that this year.
And finally, do you think that there is any real money to be made in UK manufacturing, or do you think that it's just because there is a weak pound at the moment?
I think that manufacturing has been a quietly hidden secret for many, many years and has been actually gaining a huge amount of credibility and making a lot of progress before the pound started to weaken. And if you look at the strength of some of the businesses that you see, maybe not necessarily in traditional manufacturing, but in some of the innovations that you see around the products that are designed and are built in this country. I was in Belfast earlier today. Again, Belfast is making a huge transition from a heavy engineering economy, very dependent on shipbuilding, into a much more innovative, science-led manufacturing environment. And I think if you were to go to the northeast, you'll see that much the same in terms of focus on renewables and the development of the turbine industry there. And if you go to the Midlands, you still see some of the traditional industries merge with some of the newer ones. So I think it's been a quiet success for a period of time, but it's just a neglected one.
Steve Pateman, thank you very much for joining us.
The Business Channel for business class programming.